So there's been a lot of news on the 3DS recently. Some of it's been a couple of weeks old. I didn't really squeeze it into Farmer Game News because, quite frankly, most of you people who are really into 3DS are probably all on top of it anyway, because it's kind of exciting for the 3DS for the first time and who knows when. Largely because of things like the eShop. It's getting a sequel to the successful Pushmo called Crashmo. It's getting several DLC updates for games like New Super Mario Bros. 2.
DLC?
Yes. It includes 3 new Coin Rush packs of varying difficulty for $2.50 each. And soon there's going to be a Animal Crossing game for 3DS. The Virtual Console is getting attached to the eShop as well, so we're going to see games like Castlevania The Adventure and Ninja Gaiden and Wario Land 2 and a lot of oldies that, it might be interesting to have on the go again. Also, Night Sky, which was from one of our earlier videos. Probably the bigger news is a lot of the actual full retail games are going to be downloadable, like Super Mario 3D Land and Ocarina of Time 3D, among others.
I'm pretty sure New Super Mario Bros. 2 was already that way. I think you could actually download it instead of buy the retail copy. In fact, if you're a Club Nintendo member, before the game came out, they offered you extra coins to do it that way instead of buying retail.
You'd think that they'd want you to buy up all their hard copies before they worry about the soft copies, because that's where their overhead is.
Yeah, that's true. I think that they want to get to where they don't have to produce as much.
Oh, yes.
Like they don't have to get as much plastic and paper out there. I prefer actual physical copies, though, of stuff like that. Virtual Console I'm okay with, but for new games like that, I prefer the actual copy. Especially since my Wii has been down, I haven't been able to play any of the games. Now, to get it repaired, they want to charge me, for after everything is said and done, almost $100. Now, I could get a brand new Wii for right around there. So I haven't sent it in, but at the same time, all the games on the Virtual Console that I had, I cannot get them to move to another Wii if I buy a new Wii, so I haven't bought a new Wii either.
You would think that would be a major nightmare for customer service.
Yeah, until they're willing to do something like what Xbox does, which is allow you to move all of your registered content to a completely new system, then I'm really wary about buying stuff on their online service, because instead of attaching it to a user like Microsoft does, they attach it to a console, and I don't like that.
That's very dangerous when the end of lifetime is rapidly approaching for the Wii.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. That's why I haven't bothered to get a new one. I'll probably end up, at some point, not at launch, buy a Wii U, and then see if it's any different. Because I will want the new Smash Brothers game.
They really need an account system for the Nintendo,
They
especially
do.
when the Wii U comes out. They do? It's going to be there?
No, I mean, I agree with you. They do need one.
Oh, okay, yeah. I really hope that they do it.
There's not been a lot of words so far about what Nintendo's really doing with their online presence with the Wii U, which is strange that we've only got about a month and a half till launch, and they're still keeping things under the wraps. So either they're really going to surprise us, or they're really going to disappoint us. It's one or the other.
And they're putting games that are already out on Xbox Live onto their system, so you would think they would have some kind of system like that already set up. But anyway.
They'll learn one of these days. They have to. But I am kind of worried about the whole gaming industry. There seems to be this tailspin that they're going in these days.
Well, and it's like we said in the news segment, all these big names leaving the industry entirely.
And others being swapped around. People that used to work for one company is now working for somebody else. And this is nothing new. This has happened with gaming companies since the beginning. But these are people that's been with their companies for decades sometime, or the creator of their company, and they're moving on to somewhere else or something else.
Right.
Who knows where the future will hold if we'll be out of work with this podcast.
Well, that does remind me that Will Wright, I heard, came to Max's and checked out the SimCity that they're working on. And I guess he gave the thumbs up and said he liked it, and that it was something that he would endorse.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So that's just making us all hope that this is going to be a good Final Fantasy. I mean, why did I just say that? A good SimCity and not a Cities XL piece of crap, or even worse, SimCity Societies.
There wasn't really anything wrong with SimCity Societies. It just was not the SimCity we all knew. It was more like a puzzle game, because it had more to do with what building goes to what building and making a picture than it did running a city.
That is true. That isn't that bad, but it just wasn't what the simulators wanted.
Not the ones we've known and grown up with since the early Oh, I shouldn't go there, because that was launched on just about everything. So our topic for this week, as already mentioned, is game storytelling with narrative, plots, those memorable moments in video gaming. We'll probably have a few exceptions, but we'll try to avoid spoilers, especially to any newer games that people still haven't played yet. So I think it's easiest to say that gaming narrative really started with Super Mario Bros. There wasn't
Oregon
really...
You have died of dystrophy.
Yeah.
But really, before that era, about that 1985 era, there wasn't a whole lot in the way of plot to a video game. And granted, there wasn't much after that. It was largely, you're a hero, you're saving the princess, yada yada. And if you think of it that way, Donkey Kong kind of precursor to even Super Mario Brothers, but Mario Brothers actually had more of a story to it. Largely that we have more motivation between the villain, the hero, and the victim in this case. We have a setting, and so on.
Well, a lot of the stories back in the NES era, they were contained in the instruction manual and not within the game.
Very often, yeah.
And the instruction manual for the Mario Brothers, it says in the manual, Super Mario Brothers 1, that the people of Princess Toadstool's kingdom have been turned to stone. And what do you do the entire game? You break stone.
That's how quick.
Genocide.
I didn't actually know that. I don't think I've ever seen the Mario instruction manual, to be honest.
I think that's referring to all the retainers that you're saving were stone before you freed them, I think. Maybe.
Possibly, I hope so.
Sometimes those are translation errors.
Yeah, it probably was a translation error.
The infamous Birdo comes to mind. So from there, it goes kind of all over the place. Like you guys said, the stories back in those days were so simplified that even the original Metal Gear, for as complicated as it was compared to games today, is almost silly. Ninja Gaiden was one of the first games to actually use cinematics. Actually in-game cinematics during the course of the game, not just at the front, not just at the end. So you can blame it for all those unskippable cutscenes. Plot's always been very important for setting up a lot of games. Without it, there's a lot of games that probably would have faltered a lot more if it wasn't for a story or their characters capturing the imaginations of people. Because sometimes gameplay alone isn't enough reason to play the game. And in the reverse statement, oftentimes the story is unimportant. Fighting games are a fantastic example of that, as very few fighting games have any cohesive narrative whatsoever, even among its own universe. Street Fighter has almost been rebooted how many times now? They're trying to keep a story, but it's like a Doctor Who episode. We don't know what's in what timeline anymore. But I don't think that really bothers anybody.
Well, fighting games, I don't really... See, I'm not a story-driven person for most games. World of Warcraft isn't entirely important to have a story, but I love the World of Warcraft lore. I mean, I buy the books, buy the games. I played the old games way back when they were relevant. I hate saying relevant. They're still somewhat relevant, so... But, I mean, way back when those games came out, I was playing them. I remember when the first expansion to Warcraft 2 came out, that's when you started... You know, it wasn't really until Warcraft 2 that you really started getting story for those. But as far as my ability to enjoy a game, I loved Metal Gear Solid 2. I had absolutely no idea what was going on through most of it.
I don't think anybody else did either.
Yeah. Story's not a huge deal for me. It's mostly gameplay. I hated the Diablo 3 story. I really did not like it. But I like the gameplay. It's a whole different topic about Diablo 2 versus Diablo 3, so I won't go into that. But Diablo 3, as a standalone game, without the story, has a solid gaming engine. It would be a fine game on its own. So it's just, story for me isn't a huge issue for some games. Now, obviously, there are games like role-playing games.
Oh yes.
You have to have a story for that, because that is the entire point of playing through one of those.
Final Fantasy 1 was the first game that I ever played that I actually cared to read about what was going on and everything. Before that, it was just play game, be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Final Fantasy was the first one where it's just like, hey, there's a story. I want to see what happens next.
There wasn't a lot of character development so much in that one because you created your own characters. And that's something to actually bring up. There's been a lot of protagonists in games that have been intentionally meant to be directed as the player being that character. That's why so many of them stayed silent for so long. Hello, Link. Is that always a good idea, though, especially in today's more story-driven games? Is it still a good idea to have a silent protagonist to try to hold on to that the player is the character?
I'm really glad you
say,
asked.
Oh, sorry. I say yeah. I always like it when the main character doesn't talk, because I would have really liked if Titus in Final Fantasy X never opened his damn mouth. He was the only character that annoyed me, and I considered him the main character.
Yes.
I like it when they don't talk. That way I can interpret them as I will, as if I were the player. When they talk, then I no longer consider I'm playing them. I consider they are their own person, and it's not the same.
What about in examples of characters that only talk very rarely, like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII?
Cloud is still his own character when it comes to that. Wow, Cloud was one of the... Cloud and Squall. It's just some of
the most emo of all things.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word I was looking for. I was looking for a better word, but that's just it. They're so damn emo until later on in the game where they lighten up a little bit. Especially Squall. He is just... I could just see him... Well, he does wear a chain. He is the emphasis of being an emo hero.
Yeah, he actually says I don't care a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, he was that kind of...
It takes Ryona, like, treating him like crap for a while that he starts stopping and acting like a real hero and finding importance and stuff and everything. Then you just had Cloud that was... He couldn't help what was going on because he was kind of schizophrenic until he fell into the live stream later on. And, well, thanks for giving that spoiler away if you never played that game. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's hard to talk about Final Fantasy VII without mentioning Aeris's death either.
Yeah.
I mean, the game's been out for a long time, so...
someone hasn't played it, and they're like, ah!
Yeah, I think it's beyond the point of spoiler. Now, if you said that within, like, the first week or two that it was out, then we could say, oh, that's a spoiler. But 10 years later, I don't know.
10 years later, even that. They got a movie now. That's true.
Yeah.
If you haven't played it yet, why?
Yeah. But back to is it better for a protagonist to be silent or talkative? I will point out the differences between Metroid Other M and every other Metroid game before it. I did not like Samus as much when she started talking. She started emo thinking and not being the strong, amazingly badass female heroine that I grew up knowing her as. It kind of really pierced my view on Samus there. So in that sense, I understand that that's sort of the background they always kind of secretly had for her and just never told anybody. But in that sense, it made me appreciate her a lot less than I did when she didn't talk. So I
completely agree.
Yeah, it didn't ruin the character for me. I will still play and probably even, purchase the next Metroid game, if for no other reason than because even with Metroid Other M's terrible dialogue and terrible scenes where you just look around while standing still, other than that, it was a pretty solid game.
It just seems like once they start talking, you get to know them and your version of them changes dramatically. Mm-hmm. Even Mario changed slightly, even though he doesn't talk very much. Before, it just seems like, he'll do whatever possible to save the princess. But then when he started talking and Mario 64 and all that came along, he just seems like, to me, determined but extremely happy-go-lucky, where he's making all his noises while you're running around jumping.
Well, I think that was the intention, too. Nintendo, for its reputation of being a kiddie game company, actually does have some serious titles. And I will throw Metroid out there again for that. Even Legend of Zelda has had some dark messages in its game. So I think if they want to take their mascot and make him a happy-go-lucky, funny goober person, that's okay with me. I kind of enjoy that, to be honest.
I love Mario as he is. It's sometimes amusing just to play him because he never says much. So even though it's just okay, well, he's still headstrong, but he's just goofy at the same time, which is nice. Of course, you can go to the other direction for Sega when they started having Sonic talk, and it just made him sound like an asshole to me.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. That's true. I hated Sonic when he started talking.
Yeah, it's just...
Of course, though, you have to remember that in the cartoon that Jaleel White did the voice for Sonic, he was always that kind of snarky, kind of douchebag character.
But I think it was better written in the series than it was in the games.
I'll agree with you there.
Sonic Saturday Morning was my favorite when it came to that.
Me too. I actually have the box set of that, so...